what are the chances here as we talk about he playing next to Maxi? First, he's got to get by the Spurs. So let's start with the possibility of the Sixers maybe trading up a spot. Is he worth moving from three, giving up another piece of maybe a personnel or potentially a pick in the future where the Sixers move up to number two to have this conversation about Harper?
Well, so I think this is a multifaceted conversation. You have to start from the place of why wouldn't the Spurs take him, or why wouldn't he end up with whoever is at number two? So you have to look at the Spurs roster. They just traded up and gave a big money extension to De'Aaron Fox, right? And De'Aaron Fox, while he's improved as a shooter, is a guy who is more of a ball in his hands. He's going to run the offense type of point guard. So that's concern number one. You also just drafted Castle last year, and he's had a very good rookie season. Certainly really came on in the second half of the year, but it is not a lights out shooting guy. Like, you're not going to ask him to just stand in the corner and bomb away. He is more of a let him get the ball, combo guard type of player. Defensively has some versatility, so you can use him in different lineups. And so you just look at having those two guys in place and you say, do they need in there, like, just if you had any prospect you could have, would you take a lead guard type guy? And I would say probably no. But I do think the Spurs are the type of organization that cares less about that and more about, we think this kid will be the best player of this group. We think he's probably the most versatile skill set of these guys. And so you have to incentivize them, Devon, to give up that position. Here's the more interesting one. We've brought up already, because the Spurs they have Wemby, who's already incredible. They went and got Fox, is more of a win now move. And jumping up in this fashion gives them an opportunity to say, well, if we want to go get Giannis, we probably have the best chip to trade on the block. And I think what has not been discussed enough so far, Milwaukee might be an organization that says, we value Ace Bailey more than Dylan Harper, because their draft history is sketchy, number one. But number two, I think their draft history is also, they try to take some swings on some toolsy guys, right? Like just bigger players who are more of the quote unquote upside type of swing. And so you might be able to talk me into, if the Spurs make that trade, that Milwaukee would just straight up take Ace Bailey at 2. Now, if we're just trying to operate within, all right, what is it going to take here to get into the number 2 pick with the Spurs? I think you would have to give up something significant. And by something significant, I think the most obvious pick or player to move is Jared McCain. I think Jared McCain going with 3 to get up to 2 is the type of ask that the Spurs would ask for. And that's a really tough one for me. I would say, based on where the Sixers are at, I'm not really in the business of trading up, period, unless you are telling me I can get the number 1. And I think that's borderline impossible. I think even with Nico Harrison's, let's say, creative way of thinking about basketball, I think he still views Cooper Flagg, like everyone else does, as the clear-cut number 1, as a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card for what just took place with Luka and giving him all those options. But I do think, if you think there's no possibility that Ace or anybody else is taking it 2, I think you're talking about trading 3 and McCain, and failing that, you're trading number 3 and potentially that 2028 Clippers pick, which is a really valuable trade chip. And I don't know that I am that confident in Dylan Harper that I'm willing to start consolidating some of the few upsidey or long-term chips that you have to go up and take him.
Yeah, I think Nico trading Cooper, he might be legitimately run out of town if he tries that. I don't think that's really in play, and nor should it be. By the way, there needs to be an intervention if that is proposed. In terms of 2, part of the problem with the Spurs, right, is if there's 2 reasons they would trade. Well, 3, a Giannis trade, but we'll push that to the side for a second. There's 2 reasons they would want Bailey over Harper. One is just a difference in evaluation. Doesn't seem like a Spursian thing to do, but I suppose there's some percentage chance that's possible. But if that's not it, it's because they have too many guards already on the roster that they've committed to. Well, then McCain as a piece to dangle doesn't really seem like it would be interesting to them. So I see a tough path because most of the Sixers trade chips, Maxey and McCain, are guards. I do wonder if whether that unprotected Clippers pick was that 2028, 2027? I always get the years mixed up.
I think it's 8, and then I think 29 is the swap, if I remember correctly.
I would entertain that. I would certainly entertain that. I think having the chance to have some certainty at number 2, because there were some people, and I made the mistake of going in the YouTube comments yesterday, but there were a lot of people who were like, "Well, you're too negative. Like, why are you so negative? They have this great opportunity." If you go back and listen to how we talked about, and specifically how I talked about the draft, I thought there was a pretty clear separation between 2 and 3 in this draft. There were 2 guys who I really felt like had a decently high probability of becoming, if not franchise players, at least cornerstones of the franchise. And Harper is one of those. And I think there's a pretty clear, like I can make that projection a lot safer and a lot more confidently. So I have a lot of interest in trying to trade up for that. And when you're talking about, the Clippers pick, it could end up being it could even end up being someone like Dylan Harper down the line. You give me that kind of certainty, I have interest in that. I'm just not really, it's tough for me to see a world where if the Spurs make this trade, it would be to the Sixers. It feels like it would be to something bigger, like you mentioned with Giannis.
I agree. Of course, we have to think about it. Not tied to Jared McCain, 23 games in, as fun as it was. I would still think about it because of all the things that we just talked about with him, the fit in the backcourt with Maxey, taking some of the pressure off of the other guys. I mean, you guys mentioned having a big man that he could play with and get him some easy looks. I saw somebody say he only had 4 assists. How is he a playmaker in the chat? Well, you also have to, as Derek pointed out to someone else, go watch a couple of record games and you'll see why he only ended up with 4 assists a game. And this, as we keep saying, there's no knock on those players. Those players are Division I players, but a lot of those players just didn't finish on the passes that he made.
They were like
looked like he should have led to buckets.
Yeah, they were like 250th in the nation or something like that on 3-point shooting. They were really bad.
Right. So you put him on a team like this, where if he can do the things that we believe that he is projected to do on the NBA level, that 4 assist number should be able to jump up quite a bit. But the McCain thing, once again, great guy. He did a fantastic job at the lottery on Monday. Whatever luck he brought to it, got the number 3 overall pick. Good 23 games that we had a chance to see in a horrible season. And we like the player, but we're talking about the number 2 overall pick and the possibility of what he could be long-term next to Tyrese Maxey versus a player that has a chance to be really good because of all the positives that he has as a basketball player in McCain. It's just a little bit different from this projected number 2 pick versus the pick that they selected a year ago. And if we sat here and did a redraft of the 2024 NBA draft, it would be much higher than the 16th overall pick for sure.